Everybody, the Birds 365, a Tuesday edition, just 21 days out from the Eagles reporting to training camp. Joined now by Bill Colarulo from 97.5 The Fanatic. Big Bill, how you doing, brother? Good to have you on.
Good to be on. What's going on, gentlemen?
What's up, buddy? Whoa, repping the Sixers? Is that what we're doing there?
He had
to be after the big couple of days the Sixers have had.
Yeah, man.
So you're more excited about it than I am, it seems.
How do you not be excited? Hey, this isn't Sixers 365, but
yeah, we like
yeah.
It was the best thing they could have done. Best thing they could have done, in my opinion.
That I agree with. 34 years old, but there's the best option for them. You gotta try, right?
Yeah.
So
I look at they're already in the chat asking me to get you angry today, John, like we did last week.
You know what's funny? Because I've gotten this reputation, and we got into it, and it's always fun to go back and forth. But Xander and I did a projected. It's funny. I expect more of Saquon Barkley than Xander, noted Eagles fan. I'm the Saquon Barkley hater because I try to temper the absurd people who think he's going to be the third receiver or anything. So Xander asked, and I'll let you say, Xander, how much all-purpose yardage? And I think Xander was at 1,200 rushing. What'd you say? 400,
300, 350 in the rear.
Yeah. And I was at 1,300 rushing, 400 to 500 receiving. The guy who hates him, supposedly, even though I like him as a person, it's tough not to, expects more out of Saquon Barkley than noted Eagles fan Xander Krause, Bill Colarulo.
Yeah, see? So you're misunderstood, John.
I am misunderstood.
Just misunderstood.
No, what's your projection for stat line? We did our offensive projections yesterday for stat lines. Just what do you think a Saquon might have?
So the interesting thing is you look at the numbers from last year. Swift had over 1,000, and Gainwell, I'm looking now, had 364. So you would think if they're combining for 1,400 yards that Saquon's probably going to have 1,200. The only issue for me, though, is Jalen Hurts had a lot less rushing yards last year. So I think that's the X factor. How much does Kellen Moore rely on Jalen Hurts in the running game? But if I had to predict, I'm going to say 1,200. I think Saquon will have 1,200 rushing. Receiving yards, I know I said I want him to be a weapon out of the backfield, which I do. But to John's point, you don't want to take the ball necessarily out of the hands of AJ and Devontae. I'd be happy if he had 1,200 rushing, 350 receiving. Put him down for a nice 1,500 yard.
Exactly what I had him at. I mean, that's what I feel as well.
And the haters got him above that. Because I think he's a very good player. I think he's going to have more of an impact on the running game. I go back 2 years. Miles had 1,269, I believe was the exact number. He should go above that. If he's healthy, everything depends on health. He's going to play more. You don't have Jason Kelsey. Not everything's the same, but he's better than Miles. He should get above that number, I think, if he's healthy. And then the passing game, I mean, people forget. I think DeAndre Swift had 30 something receptions. Kenny was about 30, and they combined for. And that was a bad season. They combined for 400 to 500. And that's where I think they'll get Saquon too. So
214 for Swift, 183 for Gainwell last year.
Yeah.
Good memory on 2022. 1,269 for Miles Sanders, but only 78 receiving yards for Miles.
Yeah, Miles really went off track as a receiver as the years went on. But I mean, my only thing with Saquon is the people that don't worry about Paris Campbell, don't worry about John Ross. He can be the slot receiver. Those are the people I'm like, come on, stop it. He might be in the slot like the Eagles used Hassan Reddick as a dropper in coverage, as a flat or hook defender. That's a curveball that you might see 4 or 5 times a game. If you have to do it more than that, you're in deep, deep doo-doo. So that's the kind of people that I think are unrealistic when they're starting to think about, oh, you don't have to worry about a third receiver. It'd be nice to get a third receiver for this offense, Bill.
It definitely would. I mean, Quez Watkins, we had heard for the last couple of seasons, oh, but you don't see what he does to open up this offense. You don't see how his speed takes the top off the offense. It takes the top off the defense. I was so sick of hearing that because every time they called on Quez Watkins, he wouldn't come up in a big moment. You saw it consistently, the turnovers, the drop passes, and a stat I always like to go back to is his average yards per reception. If he was really this speed demon that was taking the lid off the defense, why did we see his yards per catch significantly drop every single season? He had that promising 2021 year before AJ got here where it's like, okay, maybe this kid can grow into something because he was a 5th or 6th rounder, John. I can't remember.
6th, yeah.
So from that perspective, as a 6th rounder, successful career. Most 6th round receivers don't grow into anything. So I'll give him that. But 2021, he averaged 15 yards per catch. Then AJ gets here. You knew his production would drop, but his yards per catch dropped to 10.7. Then last year in 9 games, it drops to 9.5. So it's just bothering me saying if it's all about his speed, it's all about him taking the lid off the defense, shouldn't you see his yards per catch stay significantly higher? And then they get so desperate, you have to get Julio, who's just wasn't the same guy. He's not the Julio Jones he was.
No.
Falcons. But, yeah, I'm hoping – look, I really like Anais Smith, but, again, talking about a 6th-round rookie, Anais Smith was a 5th-round rookie. I'm not confident he's going to be able to produce. I'm hoping maybe it's Paris Campbell because the argument I had for you last week talking about Saquon Barkley is look at who he's played with. Last year in New York, look who Paris Campbell played with. The reason his numbers were so terrible. Look, go back 2 years. Go back to Indianapolis. 63 catches, 600 yards. I'll take that. If we get that level of production from our third receiver.
Take that. But the thing about Paris Campbell, and remember, you're right about you're right about the supporting cast in with the Giants. It's not been good for the entirety of Saquon's career. But Paris was only there for 1 year, and he got benched with that group, which really tells you a lot, and it's not good. And then if you go back to his time in Indianapolis, remember, that's a high-level pick. Same year as J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That was the whole thing. The Eagles were debating who to take, Paris Campbell or J.J., and Jeffrey Lurie turned them to J.J. Jeffrey doesn't want to hear that, but so he spent 4 years in Indianapolis, which was not a terrible supporting cast. In fact, when he first got there, it was a very good supporting cast. When Nick was there with Phillip Rivers, it was a tremendous supporting cast, a tremendous offense. And he did nothing for 3 seasons. He had 1 decent season, as you mentioned. And then he goes to New York, and he's got another bad season. So we're talking about a 5-year sample size, 4 bad seasons, and only 1 with a bad team.
You think that's a position they could upgrade?
Yeah.
Who would you bring in? Who would you go after, you think? Because there's a couple of guys available. I don't know. Michael Thomas is still available, right? But he's kind of a problem at times, personality-wise.
I think he's a little washed. I mean, Michael Thomas is, at one point, Michael Thomas was a big-time receiver.
But I think that season, he was the best in the league when he got that big contract originally.
He set the record. I don't even know. The number was so absurd. It was in the 140s. I'd have to look it up. But
what about a name I keep seeing floated is Hunter Renfrow as a slot receiver?
It's interesting because I think the Eagles need a backup on the outside in case. I know you can't replace A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I understand that. Everybody should understand that. If you lose players like that, you're going to take a pretty significant hit. But I think you need to be a little bit better equipped. Forget about, you're screwed. Season-ending injury, you're screwed. But if somebody's got to miss a game or two, like AJ had to miss the playoff game in Tampa, you want somebody to be able to persevere at least over a short period of time. I've looked at Corey Davis, who retired and came back, but he's very young. To me, he's a perfect fit for an outside receiver backup. Remember, they brought in Devontae Parker to be that. And all of a sudden,
then he
Devontae
retired.
Parker retires.
Yeah, because
so
at the mandatory mini camps or the voluntary ones, when Devontae or AJ wasn't on the field, your starters were Joseph Nagata, right? I mean, that's
got first team reps.
So you're right. That's a problem. And look, Hunter Renfro's a guy who's mainly a slot receiver. So you're not going to expect
he's not going to play outside.
Yeah.
Now they did bring in John Ross, obviously, and that's a lottery ticket. He's
Mr.
still
Perez,
young enough.
I see reports about Tyler Lockett. I don't know if they're ever going to. I don't know if they're going to move on from Tyler Lockett. He's still under contract in Seattle, but a guy like that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think you need a volume guy, but you need somebody who can. In fact, I know you don't need a volume guy, but
definitely don't.
Yeah. Speaking about Michael Thomas, that was so in 2019 he had 149 receptions, 149 receptions for 1,725 yards. Unbelievable season. He's never been the same since. So much. I think people don't put enough on the wear and tear NFL players take. 4 seasons since, he's had 40 catches. 2021, he didn't play at all due to injury. 2022, he played 3 games, 16 catches. 2023, he's played 10 games, 39 catches. Ever since that season, he's barely on the field. It's kind of pounding he took.
You got to go all the way back 5 years. You're right.
Yeah. It's the kind of pounding he took. I think in some ways, you're always thinking about that's what the Eagles sort of, they were a little bit, hypocritical, I guess is the best word. They turned on a corner at running back. We all talked about with Saquon. They went away from their typical way of doing business. Now with Hassan, that's their typical way of doing business. They look at Hassan Reddick and they go, boy, we ran this guy into the ground. And he just turned 30 and he's playing this inordinate amount of snaps year after year after year after year. And they find the 26-year-old with the 25% pressure percentage and say, this guy's ready to break. And if they're right, it's going to work out really, really well. Obviously, if they're wrong, everything's about evaluation. But it's interesting because there's the typical Eagles way of doing business and the atypical way. The Reddick way was the typical way. The Barkley thing was atypical. It's interesting in the same offseason.
Yeah, and I hope they're right because that's a big question mark on the defense. Can Bryce Huff give you the same level of production that you got from Reddick? Because Reddick's been the definition of consistency. 4 straight years with double-digit sacks. And like you mentioned, he played over close to 800 snaps both seasons here in Philadelphia. So you're asking a lot of Bryce Huff, who's never really done it. And now you need Nolan Smith to step up, who's never really done it. So, but maybe they're right. Look, you go back to, I remember the Joe Banner days. As soon as a player turned 30, they were usually out of here. They didn't. And the old cliche, John, it's always better to get rid of a player a year too early than a year too late. Right?
Yep. In the case of Hassan, if you go back to, and I'll look up the numbers if I can real quick, but if you go back to his time in his first year when he broke out with Arizona, which was his final year of Arizona. So you're talking about the 4 years that you're talking about, Bill, where he's been double-digit sacks, which is phenomenal. I mean, there's 2 guys in the NFL that have been able to be durable enough and productive enough to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking at his snap count now. So he played 862 last year, 817 the year before, 854 in Carolina, 874 his last year in Arizona, 688, 846. So that's a lot of snaps.
A lot.
A lot.
So what's that total number if you have it in front of him?
So including his rookie season where he played 445, he's played 5,386 snaps in his career.
Yeah, and I think Hupp is at 1,300.
And that's only in the regular season. You got to throw a little playoffs in there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, his 2022 season here was one of the great defensive seasons in Eagles history, bottom line. I mean, and anybody, 19 and a half sacks through the Super Bowl. He was phenomenal. 4th Defensive Player of the Year voting, I think, that year. But, man, they rode him into the ground. They rode him in, and I think that's what it's about more than anything else. They know what they did to him. And it's an ugly sport when it comes to stuff like that. When you make those types of decisions, you know what you've done to this player. And then you got to pay him $25 million. That's a difficult decision. And it's an ugly part of the game, but I think they made the right decision. I think that's going to be the best Eagles decision in the offseason. I think Bryce Hupp is going to be a really good pass rusher, and people are going to be really happy with that. And if I'm wrong, it's going to look really bad because Hassan is a proven player, and he's probably going to do well in the Jets. With the Jets, to your point, that's a very talented defense, Bill. But the thought of giving up a year early than a year late, they may have given up a year early, but they had to from the contract standpoint. And it may look bad for a year.
Yeah, especially with that Jets defense. They are a nasty defense. They have every level of that defense is stacked.
But 2-3 years down the road, I think you're going to say, oof, Eagles probably made the right decision.
Bill, a lot of lists coming out this week from NFL.com, from ESPN. What's your evaluation overall on the Eagles coming into the year? The ESPN Plus just did an article, 10th best starting 22. NFL.com left them off the top 10 of offense on their offensive list.
Yeah, that one
Indianapolis Colts at number 10. Just are we overrating this team here locally, or what's your sense going into the season on how good this team can be?
That the offensive one throws me off because I think that I think this offense has the capability of being a top 3 offense in the NFL. You look at all the weapons, and I've talked to you before on this show about I think the offensive line actually could be better this season. Now, there's some question marks there. Things need to fall their way, but you're moving Cam Jurgens to his natural position. He's not going to be Jason Kelce. No one ever will be, probably. But now you have him at his natural position, which means I think you're going to get hopefully better right guard play, whether it's Tyler Steen in year 2, whether it is Mekhi Becton transitioning there. But more importantly, you look at Mailata and Dickerson, those guys haven't hit their ceiling. So to John's point of the way the Eagles like to do business, there's a reason why they gave Mailata and Dickerson those big extensions, because they know those guys haven't hit their ceiling yet. I expect both of them to improve. So now if you have an offensive line that's even better than it was last season, and you have all of these weapons, what I think it comes down to is whoever's putting these rankings, maybe they don't have faith in Jalen Hurts, which I do. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a very good quarterback this season. I'm excited for Kellen Moore. So the offensive one, I think top 3. I do think some people, though, may be overranking the defense in this city because there are so many question marks across the board. The potential's there. The upside's there. I think the upside on this defense is a lot higher than what the upside was on last year's defense, especially in that secondary at the linebacker position. Maybe Devin White can turn his career around with Vic Fangio here in Philadelphia. Bryce Huff, maybe he can, getting a bigger role, turn into a really good player in this league. Nolan Smith in year 2. So I think there's upside. But right now, as we sit here July 2nd, it's hard for me to say that the defense is definitely going to be good. Offense, I think, definitely going to be top 5, potential to be top 3, hell, potential to be the best offense in the league, I think, with all the weapons they have and with that offensive line and with Jalen Hurts, hopefully getting a better offensive game plan from Kellen Moore. The defense, though, to go from 30th, how high can they get? That's my big question mark. I just don't know. We have to see it on the field.
Yeah, in a weird way, I think because of Big Fangio's presence, I think there's more certainty with the defense, believe it or not, than the offense. I think the ceiling with the offense is much higher, obviously. Um, and the ceiling with the offense is where I think you said, Bill, top three offense, maybe
Yeah.
the best. The ceiling is they could be the best offense in the
Yep,
NFL
I
because of the
agree.
talent. Um,
And Kellen's
but
done that before, by the way, with the
Yep.
talent he had in Dallas. Yep.
Yep. Best offense in the league that year.
Yeah.
But I do think I think some people are starting to catch on to some of the continuity issues. And when Jalen alludes to that, um, Jason Kelsey, better offensive. I think people are going to be very happy with Cam Jurgens, but he's not going to be Jason Kelsey.
No,
Um,
he doesn't have to be, though. I don't think.
no, either do I. I think he's going to be very solid, but I'm just saying better offensive line, probably not. I think Cam played well. I think they got worse at two positions because there's no way Tyler Steen's going to play to the level of Cam Jurgens last year when he was out there. He did miss, I think, 5 games, but he played pretty well when he was out there and healthy.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I think you're going to get better right guard play this year than last year. Whether it's Steen, whether it's Mekhi Becton, I think the right guard will be better. And I think the left side of the line, as good as Mailata and Dickerson were last year, I think they're going to be better this year. So I don't necessarily agree that the right guard play is not going to be as good. I thought Cam Jurgens was up and down, John. I thought there were good games, there were bad games. The one game Steen did play was not that great.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
No.
That
So
was
I'm expecting the right guard to be better this season, but we'll see what happens on the field.
well, he would have my problem with the right guard position. You have 2 guys in the mix, and maybe even down the road, Matt Hennessy and Matt Sharping get involved. But those to me would be. I always go back to the Super Bowl season when they tried to start Isaac Seumalo. That's what they're trying to do. Isaac turned into a very good player, but people kind of forget young in his early in his career wasn't great.
Yeah.
And he got benched. And then they went to the great Chance Warmack. And then they settled on Stephen Wisniewski. It was just a solid veteran. Wasn't going to wow you, but wasn't going to make a ton of mistakes. That's where I think they might go with Hennessy or Sharping. My problem with Steen and Becton, they're not guards. They're trying to make them guards. They're natural tackles. In the case of Becton, I don't even know. We'll see if they move him there. But I can say that Mekhi, Bill, he said it wasn't that big of a deal to him to go from left tackle to left guard when he was filling in for Landon Dickerson.
Yeah.
He said it was more difficult going from left tackle to right tackle because he's got that Andre Dillard thing going on. He's comfortable
so left
with
tackle
one
to right
side.
guard. Left
Yeah.
tackle to right guard could be an issue.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, look, if the way I look at it too, I trust Jeff Stoutland. So the fact that Jeff Stoutland didn't say to Howie Roseman, at least it presumably didn't say to Howie Roseman, I need you to go out there and get me a right guard because Tyler Steen's not the answer. The fact that it appears that they have this job given to Tyler Steen, that's the way they set up the locker room. That's the way it was in minicamp. I'm trusting Jeff Stoutland that if he thinks Tyler Steen is ready, then Tyler Steen is ready. That's the way I'm looking at it, is another year in Stoutland University.
Well, they want – look, no doubt about it, but they did get a guard. They got a guard on June 3rd. Now, nobody cares about Max Sharping.
Well,
nobody knows Max Sharping, but he started 38 games in the NFL.
Well, you needed depth. I mean that they didn't go out and necessarily get a guy that Max Sharping starter, but is he really moving the needle? They don't have him slated.
Well, I don't think he's moving the needle. I think he's Stephen Wisniewski. I think that's what they're doing. He's a former second round pick, not former. I'm breaking my own rules, Xander. I apologize. It's a second round pick in 2019. He started 38 games. He was in Cincinnati's run to the Super Bowl. He was a starting guard. He's a competent player. And that to me kind of set off some alarm bells, actually, that they brought him in. I was like, that to me was an indication that, all right, they're a little concerned. I went the opposite way. They want Tyler Steen to win the job. Oh, they want him. But the fact that they brought him in June, that was a little bit of, I'm not going to overstate and panic, but that was a little bit of a concern for me. I mean, this guy's a starting level player, mediocre to below, and that probably being kind, below average starter, but a starter. That's what Stefan Wisniewski was.
So that's when you look at the line. Yeah, clearly right guard's the X factor. Clearly right guard's the X factor. But to your point about the defense too, real quick, because I know we're up against it. Vic Fangio, I'm excited about him. I'm excited about Fangio, but to say that he's just going to come in here and now instantly the defense goes from 30 to top 10.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like middle of the road, 16, 17.
Well, what's crazy, John, is you look at his last 9 seasons as a defensive coordinator or a head coach. It's never been middle of the pack. It's been feast or famine. He's either bottom 20 or top 10. Like last year in Miami, they were 22nd overall. The year before, he didn't coach. He was here as a consultant. But in 2021 with Denver, they were 3rd. Then the year before, they were 25th. The year before that, top 10. The year before that, number 1 in Chicago, number 9 in Chicago. Then 24th, 20th. And then his last year in San Francisco, top 10. So it's like, it's either feast or famine with Vic Fangio. I got to hope and pray that he's able to get this defense going, because you can't go into the season like we did last year thinking that, well, the offense will be good enough that the defense isn't going to matter. It's okay that they let 2 linebackers walk. It's okay they let 2 safeties walk.
Well,
they're going to be fine.
If there's one thing you want to criticize Howie Roseman for, and I'll get on board with you because I think generally Howie's easily top 5 GM in the conversation to be number 1 in the NFL. But he's taken it too far with linebacker. I say it all the time. He's taken it too far. I agree with his general philosophy, but man, I mean, you got to have somebody at some point. You just can't keep rolling in the reclamation projects, the coordinator. And when they went to the Super Bowl, they had really good linebacker play. Not great, not elite, but TJ was a really good player, even though people don't want to give him that credit because he was undrafted.
TJ. I loved him.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about rankings. So Pro Football Focus, who I don't always agree with, but Pro Football Focus put out their linebacker unit rankings heading into the season. Out of 32 teams, the Eagles are number 30. Not necessarily a surprise there, but the frustrating thing, guess who's sitting at the number 3?
They weren't 32.
Yeah. Guess who's number 3? The Chicago Bears with TJ Edwards right in the middle.
Yeah. TJ's, for people that watch this show, they know I've been talking about TJ for years. He remade his body. He had a bad day. He had a bad day when he was running, and he ran a 4.87, which is abysmal, and that's why he didn't get drafted. He was the runner-up for the Butkus Award at Wisconsin. Big-time school, big-time program, big-time player in college. He didn't test well. He got in shape. He remade his body, turned into a great player. I can't tell you how many times, Bill, he can't cover. He can't cover. You look at this PFF, he's top 10 coverage linebacker.
Yeah.
Like, one thing I will say about Eagles fans is they are very provincial. They don't pay attention to the rest of the league. There aren't a lot of linebackers in this league that can cover. That's why you're trying to get a Saquon Barkley on a wheel route, because he's going to be matched up against some linebackers flailing like a goop ball down the field. That's what you're trying to take advantage of. TJ Edwards was a very good coverage linebacker here.
And he didn't break the bank. He didn't break the bank in Chicago. I said it at the time, too. When they let Kazir White and Edwards walk, I was okay letting Kazir White walk. That one didn't bother me. But TJ Edwards is the Eagles have not been good enough over the years of developing young, talented linebackers, and you finally did it. You finally got a guy in here that you developed, that turned into a very solid linebacker for your team, who didn't break the bank going to Chicago. And there was all the talk, well, he wanted to go home. He wanted to go home. And whether Clay Harbor was right or not, Clay Harbor reported last season that the Eagles never even made TJ an offer, that it wasn't that he wanted to go back to Chicago. Now, whether or not that's true or not, but I think they should have tried to keep TJ Edwards.
Yeah, because TJ said that, and I had mentioned TJ grew up a Bears fan, and I remember when he signed, well, maybe he just wanted to go home. I'm one of the ones who said that. I said maybe he just wanted to go home. I don't know if that's the case. And if the Eagles didn't make him an offer, and I don't know if they did or didn't, I've never gotten clarification on that. But if they didn't, that's abysmal. I mean, they should have took, I say it all the time, Bill, they should have took pride in, we found TJ Edwards. We developed TJ Edwards. He's turned into this player. They should have took pride in that. And now, and I know you got to run, I apologize, at Bill Colarulo. Make sure you follow Bill on X. Listen to him, 97.5 The Fanatic does a tremendous job. I saw you were on with our buddy Andrew DeCecco a bunch. So
yeah, we got a big announcement coming, me and Andrew DeCecco. So make sure you tune in tomorrow night, Wednesday night, 6 to 8:30. Me and Andrew are going to be on the air, and big announcement coming. So
all right, big announcement. So we'll be tuned in for that as Eagles season nears. But yeah, with TJ, it's like I'm surprised more people are okay with this linebacker situation. I'm very surprised how many people are. I am very concerned about this linebacker situation.
Yeah, same.
To
I
the
mean, look,
point,
the upside's there. There's certainly a higher ceiling than last year.
I don't think the upside's there.
Well, if
That's
Devin White, look, there are a lot of ifs, John. If Devin White can show he was worthy of being drafted, what was it, 5th overall, 3rd overall?
5th overall, but
and then
2019?
if Nakobe Dean can finally be the steal of the draft that we all thought he was, well, now the linebacking core could be pretty damn good if both those guys. But it's a big if. I'm with you. That's
the only thing going in my eyes for the linebacking group is what Johnny Mack said the other day. If somebody gets hurt, it's not a big drop off because they're all there's just a bunch of dudes in there, so it doesn't really matter. It's,
you know what'll help, and I got to go, but you know what'll help this linebacker core immensely is if Jalen Carter turns into the beast we think he is at D tackle.
That's true.
I mean, that
makes
can
their life
certainly
a lot
help.
easier.
Not necessarily in coverage unless he's able to get that interior pressure, but he'll certainly make their life easy.
Absolutely. That's Big Bill joining us, Bill Colarulo from 97.5 The Fanatic. Make sure you guys tune in to him tomorrow. Big announcement.
Right, big announcement.
Big announcement coming tomorrow night.
Bill, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate it.
Always fun, guys. I'll see you next week.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
See ya.
There's Bill Colarulo joining us on.
By the way, I'm on Team Nakobe for linebacker. That's the upside. Nakobe finally staying healthy, finally turning the corner, finally getting better.